Driveline R&D podcast, episode 40. This is Caravan, co-swag manager, baseball analytics, co-host, drinking a spiked off camera bubbly, peach bubbly. At least my top 8 bubbly flavors.
What'd you spike it with off camera?
Why don't you come up here and find out?
Kyle Lindley, sports scientist, engineer, Driveline baseball. Drinking a gin on the rocks, little Bombay Sapphire.
And I'm Anthony Brady, sports scientist, biomechanist, primary host of the R&D podcast, Research and Drinks. I have a Fremont Sky Kraken Hazy Pale Ale, a regular recurring drink on the show.
I think it's the third or fourth time you've had it.
And our guest, mine and Brady's old roommate, who knows, future roommate, we'll see what happens. Max Engelbrekt of the Oregon State Beavers, Washington Nationals, and now heading the track team at Driveline Baseball. Max, glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've got a Rochelle the beer. For any Seinfeld fans will maybe find that funny, but good to be on here.
Yeah, do you want to kind of just give a quick intro? I mean, you're a pretty well-known guy. I know back in your heyday when you were the I think you said you were 6th on the all-time saves leader for Oregon State. But back in your heyday, you were tweeting quite a bit. Had a lot of Oregon State fans who liking all of your tweets. But a little bit, in your current job, you're a little bit more low key. You kind of want to give the fans a quick intro of your background and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I went to Oregon State, played baseball there, was the 40th round pick of the Washington Nationals in 2017. I started training with Driveline in 2014, back when it was just Kyle. I actually trained at Kyle's facility in a trailer park back in 2011 or 2012. Was pretty good friends with Kyle throughout. He started working with Oregon State in 2014. So I'd spend my summers in Puyallup training at the old facility, and then was there until I stopped playing in 2018. I quit. I retired. I think I'm on the restricted list technically. Kyle actually sent me, I think I'm on the Rule 5 draft list this year. So I was mostly coming on here to try to get back in the game now. So I retired from baseball. I came to work at Driveline about 8 days later. I started off by mocapping people. I think I actually, in very bizarrely, taught Brady how to do the mocap markers very briefly.
Mocap assessment process.
Let's go. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I did that for about 2 months, and then I started working on TRAQ in July of 2018. We had a couple project managers that worked on that until about October, and then I started kind of manning that up. Done that for the last 2 years now.
So how did you?
Go ahead.
How did you get introduced to Kyle? Were you just like kind of looking for a coach, like a pitching coach when you were younger, and you came across him, and it just like happened to be like turn into this?
No, I remember seeing him back. I think he gave us like just an absurd deal to train at their facility for like a month, but he never like worked with us. This was back when he was like a freshman coach at a not a very good high school. But he started working. He started doing a couple studies and publishing in 2013, 2014, and then in the like January of 2014, our pitching coach at Oregon State, Nate Yeski, kind of came to us like 40 days before the season and was like, we're going to do this now. And so it was like a very radical approach to work with Kyle. But yeah, I was supposed to play in the Cape that summer and I got hurt. And so I broke a rib and couldn't really train. So I ended up going out to Driveline and kind of like rehabbing there. And that became a theme because I kept getting hurt every summer and I would go train at Driveline. So yeah, just started off by kind of onboarding with the program. 2014 was like real early stages of Driveline. I think we were mistakenly doing like 20-pound wrist weights instead of 10-pound wrist weights to start off with. And so definitely early on there, but it was cool. I became pretty good friends with Kyle and have been for several years now.
Yeah, and I was going to say, kind of going into your path, retiring from baseball. I know I've heard a story. I don't know if Lindley's heard his story, but I was curious if you were kind of down to talk about the almost pseudo bet that you were talking about with your teammates before finally calling it quits. Because I thought it was a pretty interesting story. And by the way, random note, I've told you this, I think, but the first time I met you, I actually thought you were Lindley because I just saw Kyle Lindley on all these. I don't know if I told you this, Lindley. I kept seeing Kyle Lindley in all these like slacks and base camps, and then like it was like 4 or 5 months in, so I don't really know all the like remote guys. And then Max shows up one day. He's coming to research lunch with us, and it's just like some tall blonde dude joking around with Brady. So I'm like, okay, obviously this guy like knows people here. He's not just some rando. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's Kyle Lindley. I just had that in my mind because I kept seeing like Kyle on like the research like Slack channels. And then we roll into, I think it was Red Robin. And I was I mean, I'll say what's up to Kyle Lindley. I don't know him. I should meet up. So I go up to Max. I'm like, what's up, man? And then he goes, Max. And I'm so taken aback. I just didn't say anything. I didn't even say my name. I'm like, what the fuck? And I just like walked away. I had to get my bearings. But anyways, yeah, if you're down to share that story.
Oh yeah. I remember that day pretty well. I woke up. We had a day game, and our off day was the next day. I woke up and like immediately fell in the shower. Kind of like cut myself up a little bit there. We had a day game. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I think I was about to make a bad joke, but
good.
Go ahead.
Good. Yeah. So we had a day game. It was freezing cold. It was in April. And so we had like, 4 coats on, and it's like 7 of us talking about, whatever we're doing in the bullpen. Nobody does anything in the bullpen in the minor leagues. And so everybody's kind of asking like, how much would it take for you to like retire right now? Like how much money? And, I'm immediately like, I'm going to go last. And so each person goes and they're like, it'd be $1 million, maybe $2 million. I'd need all my pre-arb money to retire. And I'm thinking like, well, like being in the bullpen in like full season A-ball is not typically where you find the people with the most money, right? So I kind of knew I was about done. And so I kind of waited till everybody went, and I was like, you give me $1,000, I'll quit right now. And the people were like, oh, come on, like respect yourself a little bit more. So I'm like, okay, you give me $5,000, I'll quit right now. So I think I pitched like the either the 8th or the 9th. I think we were down like a run or two. And I went like E6, strikeout, home run, walk, and got pulled. And then I came out. They were going to send me back down to the GCL, which, well, it's just instructs there, or extended spring training, which is not where a 24-year-old that doesn't throw very hard wants to go. That's kind of where you go to die. And so I accepted it, and I was like, okay, we fly out at 6 a.m. the next day. And then I like immediately went and called Kyle, who was like at lunch or something. He didn't answer. I was like, hey, like, how do I quit? And Kyle's, like, I think you just like go in and quit or go tell him. So I'm like, okay, that sounds easy enough. So I like went back and like knocked on the manager's door again. It's like, hey, like I said at the beginning of the year that if I went back down, I was going to quit. And I didn't know if I could do it, but I think I can do it. So how do I quit? And he kind of like, it didn't seem like he'd had that happen many times before. So I think he's just like, well, I think I just like call him and tell him you quit, but this will be like pretty hard to undo. So thought about it for a minute and was like, yeah, I'm done. So yeah, I went back and told the guys afterwards, like, guys, I could have saved like $5,000 if I would have just quit that. So yeah, that was the last day. And yeah,
you haven't pitched since, right?
No,
like in adult league or anything. That's what I wanted to ask you. I noticed because I've heard you mention it before, how it was like you've just kind of moved on and you're pretty comfortable with that. And like a lot of people Driveline, everybody's still like training because we can, and a lot of guys are like kind of continuing to try to make it, get another opportunity or whatever. What do you think it was that you just done? Like you've been playing so many years, you were a little tired of competing, or you just like, what was the reason? Do you think that you were so comfortable just calling it good and being done with baseball and kind of moving on?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably partially to do with because like the last year or so, I was already sort of done, and so I kind of started to resent playing a little bit, which is never a good thing to do if you're in the minor leagues. I mean, there are a few jobs worse to like not be excited to go do than play minor league baseball in, with the pay and with the schedule and whatnot. I would say that's not what you're looking for there. So by the time that I was done, I mean, I was in a lot of pain just on like a day-to-day basis. I got an arthritic knee. I've blown out my knee twice. Like I the day-to-day grind of staying in shape and being ready to play was definitely something that once I was done, like I really didn't want to feel anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's great if, one of the selling points to work at Driveline is you can keep training and keep throwing. And I like to play basketball, but like, I don't think I'm going to be play in the NBA, And so similarly, like if you can throw as a hobby and it's good exercise, and great. It's just, there's nothing I'd rather do, less at this point than throw. I'm just done. I did it for a long time and I loved it, and I'm just done. I'm done.
I actually like kind of piggybacking off Lindley. I don't know if Lindley said this, but I've always kind of like low-key admired you just being like pretty set on that line, because there are many people even that aren't clearly gonna play pro ball, but just like have goals and are training and like pushing their bodies. And I mean, you like you said, you like exercise plenty, have your own like physical hobbies. That means basketball and other stuff. Not
to mention disc
anything.
golf. Recently,
Yeah.
Ever.
But I remember even when we were testing out like a few like different like pitch tracking systems, I think the DK ball like years ago, and you were like walking around with it, and then you just gave it to me. You're like, yeah, man, can you throw this into the net? Like, and I was like, to see the real spin rate, and I was like, I mean, yeah, okay. And I just like chucked a terrible. I just chucked like it's sky high, like barely red, and I was like, I still don't know the answer, man, because that was an insane throw. But you're like, I'm not throwing this. I got to get someone else to throw it. Like neither me nor Caravan can throw this.
Yeah, I mean, partially though too, like obviously the areas where I would need more specific knowledge on like would not be like throwing again. But like if you're new to Driveline and you want to get more familiar, like I think one of the things that you could take for granted if you came up training with Driveline or going to a Driveline school is just being familiar with like training methods and whatnot. And so I think like learning how to do the drills or walking through a workout or something is valuable. Fortunately, with like, my experience, like, I did that for several years. So I don't think that me going through like a hybrid B day would like necessarily help me anymore. But like if you're a new employee or you want to do it, that's great, and you definitely should. But yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
That's hilarious. My first time ever meeting Bodie and Tyke, and who else? I think Schwartz was down in Arizona, but they were, I forget, it may have been for spring training or something. And that was right before I got right after I got the 2017 R&D internship. The first time I met them, I went to the game. It was OSU against ASU. You came in to close, and some dude struck out and threw his bat, and they were just going nuts because I was like, I didn't know they were buddies with you. Like that's crazy. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know why they're going crazy, but like Tyke's got his camera out, zooming in on Engelbrekt in the middle of the field. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Tyke was my first like technically like throwing trainer, right? I mean, it's pretty funny. Yeah, that my two favorite moments of playing would have been that, which was just a guy like threw his bat on like a fastball like outside or whatever, or on senior day I got an at bat or I got out, but yeah, those were probably my two favorite moments.
Didn't you like laser a ball into the outfield or something?
Yeah, I have to have like the highest average exit velo in Oregon State history, right? I think I hit a ball 94 off the bat and like lined out to left field. So, I have that going for me.
Let's go.
I was going to say one of the things that I think is interesting to think about, and not to spend too much more time on your playing career. We can move on soon after this, but do you think like how different was your approach to what it would be now if you were coming up even like a couple of years later? And or how much did you rely on? I mean, clearly you went through like Bodie specific training protocols, and I'm assuming there was some, maybe not as much as there is now, or almost certainly not as much as there is now, like, biomech background to what you did, why you did that. But I'm curious about like any arsenal analysis or any sort of like sabermetric crunching that you did on your own or through like a third party like Bodie. What was kind of your perspective on that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like, I never got assessed. I don't know if Anthony, you ever got assessed, or if you were too early there too. But like a lot of the methods, like the hybrid A days, velocity days, pull downs, were all in effect when I was training. But in terms of like how Driveline exists today, it was pretty different, right? And so, my like throwing partner over the years was another Driveline kind of legend, in Jack Scheidemann, right? He was like a 300-pound shot putter that like went to a Mariners game and threw like 98 on the radar gun, right? And so like we would do like 3 high intent days in a row, and then would do like a recovery day or something like that, right? Like the training methods had changed quite a bit. In terms of mine, I mean, I would do Driveline protocol like every single day, and definitely liked how it felt. It got a little bit different in pro ball. I think things have gotten better with pro ball, but like we were pretty much outlawed from doing even like J bands, were in some ways like kind of looked down upon when we were playing. I don't know. I mean, I calculated like FIP in college and tried to like find a constant for the Pac-12. Like I'd run like strikeout rates, and I think I was pretty early on like walks are bad, or just you're like running the mill like 2017, 2016 sabermetrics. But man, I think now, and I think part of this is working with TRAQ now for a couple of years, of like I would have used all this stuff if we had access to it. It's just we're a little bit too early.
Yeah,
you mentioned when you started
for the assessment process. At least like not like to the extent that it is now. Am I still quiet for you guys?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, because I should be louder at least on the.
Oh, you're louder now.
Yeah, I should be louder at least like on the podcast front. But no, the assessment process was like when I just showed up. The assessment process was just teaching you the drills.
Right.
And then I guess when I came back in like 2018, when you were like working the lab, I did do a mocap, but like the reporting and it being built into like programming and all that stuff didn't really exist, not at least in the capacity that it does now. I mean, it was so much just like in the rudimentary stages at that point.
Right. Yeah, totally.
You mentioned, Max, that you were kind of running the mocap lab. It doesn't sound like what was your initial role coming in? And like, how did that how did that like transition into just kind of being in charge of the development of TRAQ and everything?
Yeah, so my initial role was R&D intern, and I think Kyle hired me without really having any idea what I would do other than come in and work. And so I was supposed to work 20 hours each week, just kind of throughout the summer. I mean, I didn't even really know what I would do either. I was kind of situated in like the main room in our R&D building at the old facility. I do mocap mocap would run like 3-4 hours a day. I'd often do it by myself. And that would take enough time. And then I was pretty skilled with like spreadsheets and whatnot, so I could run some sort of work for Mike or for any of the other business side. But I remember the first night, because Kyle actually picked me up from the airport when I flew home from my early retirement. And I think he said, like, you can work on the product that like combines all of our data together. And I think I actually, when I met with Alex the first time, had like tried to explain to him what that was. And I don't think Alex like even knew what my explanation was, because I didn't know it. And when I started, TRAQ wasn't called TRAQ either. Like, it didn't have a name. The URL was still tracking.drivelinebaseball.com, but it didn't have a name, right? And so we were like, the first day I started working on it was the first day we started selling it. And so I basically started by demoing it to a bunch of schools. It wasn't really a fully built out product when we first launched, but it could do a lot of cool stuff that is pretty new to the baseball field. And so, yeah, I worked on that, got acclimated. I mean, when I started, I didn't have really any idea of like, a UAT server, a live server, how bugs are logged, how bugs are fixed, or even like who developed the software, right? And so there's a pretty steep learning curve there with working with our development team and working with the project manager, Dwayne, who was working on that for the first several months I was there. And so, basically, once I started working on TRAQ after, about 2 months, I'd work, 40 hours a week, going on to like wheniwork.com and logging hours. I'd work like 39 hours and 59 minutes or whatever. And then by the time October came around and Dwayne took another job, like I worked on TRAQ for hundreds of hours and had a much better idea of how, we run our iterations or fix bugs or plan features. So it's definitely been a process to learn, and one that I didn't have a ton of experience. I mean, I'd taken like project management classes, or I got my MBA in business analytics. So I have a fine background in app software, but certainly no expert there coming into it. And so basically just took a long time to learn.
I was gonna say, I think kind of almost your evolution is a little bit in parallel with TRAQ itself, because I remember when I first started, when I first interviewed, I actually interviewed Dwayne. Dwayne was probably the only person that specifically talked to me one-on-one for a while besides Bodie, because even when Mike came, he like talked with me. It was like me, him, and Bodie. Or I think like even Bauer was there the first day I was there. It was like me, him, and Bodie. And then Dwayne talked to me for a bit about TRAQ, and he's just like talking about the database. And I was like, yeah, I can definitely help with that. I have a pretty good database background. And my first like 8 months or so, or 10 months, I guess, if Dwayne left in October, I was like working with him and just doing a bunch of database support, talking to the devs, but kind of onboarding myself as well, because I wasn't familiar. I was familiar with like classic databases, tabular structures, like storing data, building out queries, building out all this stuff. But I didn't have as strong of a background in like all these like different types of actual like data types and different ways to store it, like these embedded JSONs, all this stuff that the devs, and by the devs we mean the Belarusian dev team that is dear to Max's heart, and he talks to more often he talks to his own family and across more diverse hours. But and then once Dwayne left and Max kind of like slowly got onboarded, I remember like we'd talk a bunch about like random database stuff. We'd almost like hit me up as a random resource, and then only like within the last year have like the software tools like myself and other people in Driveline internally been working on. Now we've embedded in TRAQ. We've kind of like married both worlds and like really brought everything together.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, part of it too is like you need to build out enough of the software to like make it usable to then make your insights and analysis like mean anything. Like if people aren't logging workouts or recording any kind of training data. I mean, when we started in when we first launched the product to live to people, I think we only integrated with like XLS files for Blast and had a DK integration. So, our main data sources, I think we have the most amount of data with Rapsodo. Internally, we have a lot of HitTrax data. We have some TrackMan data now, but like you're not dealing with too high a data quality when we first start there. And yeah, I mean, I think like big picture, the most of the important tasks that we'll develop with TRAQ will have to do with, the three of you and a couple other people that are running, the analysis and developing processes that will allow you to give like training recommendations or, give automated reports. I mean, there's so much now that we can do report-wise that trainers can do to access more information. But like a lot more of what we'll do in the future is just making them spend less time on it, right? And so I think we'll only continue to get more and more involved into the database and have more people look at it. I think that's really the only way forward now that most of the like core software features are built. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, how many more tabs are we going to build? We can make the tabs a lot better, but now it's just delivering data in the easiest way possible and make our reports as good as they can be.
Yeah.
From an R&D point of view. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think too, like our insights, because the like TRAQ's direction is very similar to like originally when you were still running mocaps, the reports would be ran manually. And then like Joe or I, or sometimes like Matt Daniels or Jags, or like even like Sam Breen would like manually write up a synopsis of like the biomechanics report. And then now it's like going from that to like an automated tool that processes the data and you get those insights. And so now it can be like people outside of Driveline. But that's what we've done too with like the reports on like the hitting side, like the batted ball reports, pitch design, pitch recommendations. Like just getting all of those to like a much bigger reach and just like outside of manually writing all of those up one at a time.
Yeah, and there's so much work that has to go into like make that process possible, right? Like I know that you guys like writing up all the text notes like takes a very long time to begin with, and same goes for just getting data and getting that kind of infrastructure in place.
Yeah, that's not to mention the time that went into like figuring out what to put in those notes, like what matters and whatnot. Yeah,
just the processing side alone.
Yeah, true. Max, how long did it take to get to know the back end of TRAQ and like just like Caravan was talking about the database structure and all that stuff? I've been like very impressed in the last little bit, working a little bit more closely or being more closely like included in the conversations around TRAQ and its development. How like your knowledge base of the infrastructure and the databases, how they work, what's in the database and all that stuff. How long did it take you to get familiar with that? And did you have any background in your like major or in college, whatever, that kind of prepared you for that?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it took probably about 6 months to get like really comfortable with it. I mean, like SQL is very easy to get like the simplest understanding for. Like, I mean, you could get you could have access or be able to find data. I mean, a lot of things with TRAQ and especially with trying to find bugs initially, it's just like, can you like literally find where this is? And if you can't, then like it's really hard to log a bug or to help the dev team fix something, right? So I mean, I took like database management classes in undergrad and grad school. I can't say that I had like a great understanding of those, just in kind of the abstract. When you get like a lot of the work that you do in those classes were like match primary keys or like build out a database, but like I found it much easier for me to like use this myself once you have a product that's already there and you have a front end too. So like if I wanted to like just test like where is this, then you just type something in, the user ID, and then you probably have like 8 to 10 tables that it could be in. And then once you find it once, like it'll always be there. So, I still like the first several months I worked on it, and probably into like at least a year, I would just ask mostly Alex of like, hey, I want to find this. Like, can you write me a query that we'll find? Because a lot of the time you're like doing some kind of crazy joins, or you're running, averages inside, or trying to get like different facility IDs and whatnot. But like, as long as my goal is like, can I have him give me a query once or twice that then I can use to like change myself? Because a lot of times you're just changing like the facility ID, the user ID, date range, whatever. Like, and from there, it gets pretty easy to do yourself. So, now whenever we develop a feature, or whenever we start to work on something new, like one of the core things we'll talk about is what will it look like in the database, or how will we find it, especially as that goes more into reporting. And if you look at something like edge reports, like all of that is just coming right through our database and stored in as a JSON. So, and that'll really be only become more important as you get into more like integrated reporting. Because realistically, we could put in anything that TRAQ stores in any of our databases into an edge report, and an edge report, as we continue to move on, could go anywhere or be anything, right? It doesn't have to be a PDF report, and it doesn't have to be on an athlete's profile, right? You could pull team reports, facility reports. You could pull anything, as long as you guys have it, or we can find it in our database.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit? I know it's like relatively early in the podcast to kind of say this, but I think it goes well with the convo. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about like some of the more like some of the non-Black Ops goals of TRAQ in the next couple of months? Like what are your biggest goals and ambitions from a public point of view, and what you hope to accomplish next?
Yeah. It's been a little bit of a slower time in terms of deploying features. We've been on deploying new features either once or twice a month for the last couple of years. We've been running a couple bigger feature sets, and so we have quite a bit of stuff on our test server right now. One thing that'll be really cool that we have that's just about ready is our new user interface. So it should look a lot more like Driveline's brand. It should have it should just frankly look quite a bit better, and that's something we've been working on for several months now. And we have our first build ready to be deployed here. I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we should be able to deploy it. It should be quite a bit faster too. So if you ever run into like slower load times on a couple pages, our infrastructure's changed as well. So it should be quite a bit faster. We have some front end features as well that I'm excited about. We have something called the workout tracker that will have a start button on every workout. And then it just makes a very easy place for trainers to log notes about each of the athletes, whether it be pitching, hitting, strength, health, or general. And so if you think of kind of the core pieces that currently exist with TRAQ, we have a very good system in place to schedule workouts and monitor on an athlete basis. An athlete should have a very clear idea of what they're going to do over the next month, and the trainer should as well. Training to get you better in that regard. But what we hadn't built out, and what we should have deployed soon is a way to communicate while you're doing the workout, mostly between trainers. And that's especially going to be helpful for Driveline, as we have many people that are on the floor at once. And so if you want to easily see kind of a thread, it's all built in with the workout that you're doing. And then similarly, if you're at a college or a facility and you have like 2 or 3 people, it just should be much easier to communicate during the day.
Yeah, basically large facilities. Basically, large facilities with like integrated training are going to benefit the most from that, right?
Yeah. Potentially colleges too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like this feature caters to teams and like organizations more than most of the features in TRAQ. Like it allows, like if there are multiple locations of players or different groups of players doing different things in different areas. I think that generalizes to more than just facilities. So I think it could be a really like big thing for teams as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at like a college or even like a pro work, depending on the college, like strength staffs or training staffs will be either like highly integrated into the team, or they'll be much less so. And so, if you have an easy place to like leave a note that your strength trainer could see, or your like trainer could see. I think it could be much easier for those 4 or 5 coaches to communicate, because mostly what you're just looking for there is like, is this guy like maybe hurt and you want to leave a note really quick, or did this guy screw something up last time and something you could fix, or some cue that you think is helpful. I think those are all pretty good use cases. And so, yeah, I think, whether you're on the floor with many trainers at a private facility, or you have 4 or 5 people that maybe don't talk to each other all the time, training the same athletes, they could both be really helpful.
Yeah, I know it's been like, even for like us, as we've always preached integrated training, and we always like approach training athletes with all of the different aspects in mind, whether that's recovery and strength conditioning and throw or whatever skills training you're doing. It's still like there's still room to be improved there, I think, because the actual communication between all the trainers is just really hard, especially as we scale. So when I first saw that feature, I was extremely excited. I know that Dan Adams, shout out Dan, the head of strength conditioning or high performance here, he's extremely excited about it. He hit up myself and then Anthony and Joe on separate occasions to show us what all of his ideas about it.
Yeah, and that's really cool to see. If you can get like good trainer engagement there about something. I honestly don't think that anything makes Jeremy, one of our other project managers with TRAQ, or I happier when I think Driveline has had some of the more harder to please trainers among even our other users, right, in the past. So I think that's been really that particularly excited about Dan's excitement,
enthusiasm for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think like part of the reason for TRAQ success is it was initially designed to help us optimize all the possible data pipelines we use, all the possible like analyses and reporting that we want a software to do. So our demands are usually like much greater than a lot of prospective clients, just because we've been around a bit longer and have such a diverse array of things we do and clientele we see. So like initially a ton of the stuff, I don't know how obvious this is to other TRAQ customers, but a ton of the stuff is initially put on by demanding trainers who want to optimize and train their athletes better, and then put like very heavy demands internally on TRAQ, and then Max and the TRAQ team try to like satiate them. I mean, a lot of the times, and I think it's like an interesting divide that potentially will not always be the case, but there's an interesting divide at Driveline between like people that are very hands-on with athletes and then the kind of software development cycle, right? Because like people that are very hands-on in general are like, okay, I'm doing this. Like I want to be doing this. Like, can this be done tomorrow? And obviously like development cycles don't go like that. And Max, you can speak to this more, but like generally the process is like you have to spec or plan out a feature, discuss with a development team, do some business analysis, kind of get the estimates going, get that approved. Then like there's several steps between that and development, testing, all this stuff. And I think like you being in that position is probably one of the more unique like hybrids of that role, since you're only a few years removed from being an athlete yourself and having gone through the Driveline training process. And then on the other hand, talking to all these like very technical devs that a lot of our trainers would like not really be able to interact with or have an idea of how to use them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to remember that like the people that we're building it for are the people that are the trainers who are using this, right? But it is tricky in some regards, right? Because if you are always building something day after day at the request of them, it gets really hard to build something that's scalable and coherent and also usable to a larger audience, right? I think we're extremely lucky that the heaviest user of TRAQ is Driveline, and that we have, thousands of hours a month that get spent and have features and a pretty tight feedback loop to get either issues fixed. A lot of the issues that we have to get fixed with TRAQ are brought up internally, or features planned, right? So there's a little bit of a give and pull. Driveline is also a much more complex organization than say like a college or a high school where you have like 4 coaches. We'll have 80 people log into TRAQ a month from the training side. On Driveline side, if you get, analysts or, business like CR or TRAQ or whoever, the TRAQ developers. So yeah, working with the development team, typically we'll be planning one iteration and we'll run 1 month, which is a little bit long in terms of software dev cycles, but we'll run 1 month to plan. We'll then develop everything in month 2, and then month 3 we'll deploy. So we're always working on 3 different iterations. And so we can fix smaller stuff, if there's text, like an error in text, or if there are any bugs, we'll fix, within a week. But like, if you're dealing with like another set of features that you want, or oftentimes, often the worst thing that can happen is like they have no suggestions or no feedback, because that like largely means like, we don't really want to use this, right? Which is like bad, right? But then there's the other side of it where it's like, this is great. Can we get like these 7 things? And it's like, well, that'll take like hundreds of hours to develop, right? It's like in like 2 months you can do that, right? But then like, so there's definitely a fine line of like, what can we get to our trainers quickly, and then what can we build longer term so that we have a full solution, right? And so, in the past we've probably gone a little bit fast in some areas, and maybe oftentimes there's a little bit of a decision before, like, well, should we push out something that's 80% done or 80% good that people could use? There's clearly a functionality that is there, and you can do something that you couldn't 2 months ago. Or is it better to wait another month and turn something out that's 100% done? I would say early on, especially as you're building out a platform with so many new features like we've had, that it probably was, we definitely erred on the side of pushing things out quickly and then iterating on that. But as you get more and more users, and as like mistakes are more expensive or more costly, if TRAQ has any sort of bug that prevents people from using it on a day-to-day basis, that's thousands and thousands of people that really can't train their athletes or can't log in to see. So it switches a little bit from trying to be a little bit more cautious now from early on, just trying to iterate as fast as you can.
Max, there was a Tim Campos in the chat asked if there would be an auto regulation tool in the TRAQ strength programs. I assume that kind of has to do with readiness and basically how programs should be adjusted based on somebody's like readiness for that day. At least that's my knowledge of auto regulation. I don't know if you have more on that.
Yeah. I get kind of into like program recommendations, right? And so my stance there is that is what we are building towards doing in some capacity. Honestly, the people that would actually be in charge of making sure that we have a system good enough and to validate that the system is good enough would be Alex and you two and our heads of each training department, right? My stance on building out something like that is just that it needs to be much better than what you currently are doing. Like any recommendation that isn't much better than the trainer initially is just useless initially, right? But as soon as it's done, absolutely. Like you can't do something more important than that once it's ready. But if it's not ready, then it's very difficult to do. So in terms of strength, we do have some more improvements on the strength side that are coming. It can be a little bit rigid to adjust workouts at times. Things like editing workouts on the fly. So like right now you have to drag and drop a new workout. And then if you want to make like a subtle change to a workout, you'd have to clone the workout, make that subtle change, rename it to like 85% or whatever, and then redrop that workout in. Like we're working on ways to keep that parent workout the same, but like sometimes you need to switch one exercise or one drill. And so it's pretty time consuming to do that. But like you can keep the same parent instance and then just make changes on the fly. So something like that, I think we could do in the short term, but a lot of R&D hours that we're doing over the, next, year or 2 years would be on more of those like high-end projects. And I'm sure you guys could speak better than I in terms of, even how close we are to something like that.
I think you brought up a really interesting point that I think maybe worth restating or just kind of like expounding upon. One of the things that I myself have noticed and that you reiterated for TRAQ is, when you're just starting to develop something and want something as a proof of concept or want like something to be able to give people, it's the onus for beta testing or mistakes or QA is much lower. Like you want people to like, oh, there's no problem. Like one complete different output might just be a simple bug, and that's all good. You're glad like it got vetted. You're glad you tried this. The feedback from people was really, really important. But then when you have multiple paying customers and like people that use it very regularly, you like depend on certain features for like getting through their program, building out their day, all this stuff. You have to be like, whatever you introduce has to be that much, like the onus is that much higher to have be like very high quality and be able to embed right away. And I think that's something we noticed too with the edge reports when we first started them out internally and like of our internal like server. There were plenty of bugs, or like when we first started kind of like beta testing them in TRAQ, there were a bunch of bugs, and we had to fireproof them. We had to make sure they were fireproof to ensure like consistent use in the next couple of months. So I think that's like a really good point to bring home in general for product management or trying out a new platform. I think on the auto reg, one thing that I've talked with you about that I'm really excited, and I think is probably going to impact us more internally or us at Driveline more than most other customers, is the TRAQ API and being able to kind of automate batch processes or almost like at that point it's almost AI informing like the athlete or the trainer about what workouts stick out, what's the suggested path, and setting goals automatically based on like whatever parameters or conditions you feed into the athlete profile. So from my point of view, we're both kind of close and pretty far away from that. I think we're pretty close to doing like a semi decent job, but at the point where TRAQ is, how many people we have on TRAQ and how many like paying big time customers we have on TRAQ, obviously it has to be much better than like semi decent to trot out in production.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you bring up a good point there in terms of like, I think the first thing that TRAQ would be able to do is let you know when things fall outside of a band, right?
Yeah.
And that could be something like you PR'd by 3 miles an hour on these athletes, right? So then maybe we build out some sort of tab or interface to show whenever somebody peaks there, right? Like you could see kind of an early build of like the workout tracker where like if we put in some core, even like badges or something like that, where you could get a pretty clear spot of like this person PR'd 2 weeks ago, or this person dipped 4 miles an hour and is now like at risk or something like that. I think those would be the first things that you would see. If you're looking for like automated recommendations, once again, like the development time there is not crazy, right? Like we have APIs built out that we're going to start using internally, and we'd give access to paid users to start using. Ideally, we'd just put everything into a sandbox too and let you test and build out your programs, or something that we could figure out some way to monetize that for developers or for us, whoever, right? But like the actual development, right? So in that case, if you're talking about strength and you're talking about like you would then maybe need to create a new workout or assign a new workout. Like you could get very specific, but like everything is in place there with the API to be able to like make that change. But the really hard part is like, can you build out a robust enough algorithm that like is really good at this, right? Because like mistakes definitely matter in that regard, where like if you're giving an athlete bad recommendations, X% of the time, like that's, I would say, pretty inarguably worse than giving no recommendations until they're good,
Yeah, for sure. I think Tim's question also, I don't just like overlook this, but he compared it to what Team Builder or Train Heroic, which I assume is another athlete management software, has. And I'm curious as to like how much, like looking at those types of products and hearing feedback from those types of products has gone into kind of your guidance of where TRAQ development should go, some things that are important for us to tackle, and how big of big of a part of our development that's been, or is it mostly like feedback from our product of our product from our trainers or customers?
It's a mixture of both, right? I mean, especially on the strength side, you get less so on the baseball specific side in terms of software that goes directly for pitching and hitting workouts. But, there are tons and tons of athlete management systems to begin with. And then there are tons and tons of pieces like software that schedules out workouts, right? Largely in the strength and conditioning space. And so, yeah, Team Builder and other companies like that do quite a lot of things really well. I think in that regard, we want to make scheduling programming as easy as possible for our trainers. But, I don't think you want to get caught specifically in trying to build the best workout planner at all times. I think the, area at which Driveline and TRAQ is most valuable is in the reporting and the interface and being able to do a lot of things really well. And so I think you can get into kind of a standpoint where you're overbuilding, or you're really trying to spend a lot of your resources on one of our core features, which is scheduling workouts. But I think you could deliver quite a bit of value by making your workout scheduler, really good, but then spending more time on edge reporting and whatnot, because eventually I think that's where everything, and I think we're getting closer, right? And anybody that would run, say, like a pitch recommendation with an edge report would then have some idea of how to then train athletes to get a better slider, right? And where we end up, I think, will be a place where all of those things are talking to each other and informing on how you're going to train your athletes. And so that's kind of the guiding principle that I think whenever we're deciding how we're going to develop TRAQ and use our development team's time.
Max, I got a question for you. Semi-personal, while not revealing, one I actually haven't asked you before, but I just thought of now as we're talking about the future of TRAQ. Do you think like you're passionate enough about product management that would be taken away, like like excluding for a second, like the experience you have behind it and the career path you're already on? Do you think like you're more passionate about product management than development, like being a developer yourself, or have you ever thought like it'd be cool to be the one developing these features, like from the very details, like writing the lines of code at all?
Oh man, I mean, I'm much better suited to be in product management, right? Like, I think I could do, one of the things that I've long wanted to do, and I guess I haven't wanted to do it too much because I haven't done it, right? But I've always wanted to get better at writing code myself specifically. I think at least having some sort of idea of how to talk to developers well gets you a long way there. And so I think probably my first year or so of just asking you questions or just asking the developers and getting to know them better and how the dev cycle work has gotten me, quite a long ways there. But no, I don't see me ever being an actual developer as something that I would do, although I would certainly like to get better at writing code myself.
Because if so, I mean, man, you could I could outsource the hit tracks calculations to you. Since I've gone those wrong about 6 times for our dev team.
I know we're in a weird spot now where the developers are saying, like, why don't you ask Max for help with like the first 4
database.
times I had to like the different computers we'd log into SQL. I couldn't figure it out for like hours.
I thought that was going to be your plug to restart Good to Learn, Caravan.
Oh, no.
Get the coding classes back in.
That's a good point, though. Maybe remote Good to Learn stuff is something I get inspired from Robert Frey's paid R tutoring lessons he's been tweeting about. Those are cool. I was going to say kind of a couple of fun questions near the end. I mean, I know this personally. A lot of the listeners maybe don't know this, but I consider Max to be a man of fine taste when it comes to, drinks, food, books, movies, music. Very, very open-ended, loaded question, but I guess, yeah, like I'm curious what what you're comfortable talking about. What's kind of your go-to, one of your favorite beers, one of your favorite books you've read recently, and then some new music you've been crushing.
Well, my favorite beer is this one.
Wait, before you get into it though, also another personal question. What's kind of your marital status? Are you single, girlfriend, married, divorced? Where are you at on that?
I think the base camp post we got from our new executive. I don't think you can ask that legally.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true. My bad.
I think,
my bad.
Yeah.
Yo, how old are you?
I am not married. I am not married.
That looks like a bachelor pad behind you. That's why I asked. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I bought a candle a couple days ago. Spruce it up. Put a light over there. Let's see. I like IPAs fine. I've drank more wine during quarantine. I don't know what else there is to do. Let's see. Books. I borrowed your copy of Freedom by Jonathan Franzen. I read that, I think, in a week. I really liked that. Let's see. I started White Noise by Don DeLillo last night. Music. I've been into dream pop the last couple of weeks. I played, I think, the same album twice in the car by, I don't know how to, it was Heaven or Las Vegas. I don't know. I like quite a bit of music. You could probably give me a better answer on what my music tastes are like than I could myself, or probably for all of those.
Well, I'll name drop a couple. I mean, you got me into Wilco for sure. You got me into 1975, which is not. I mean, that's not that underground of a band. Yo, bro, Max introduced me to 1975, dude.
Wow.
But I'm saying
it's not like Wilco is either.
Yeah.
Wilco's at least more low key than 1975. 1975 is like the joking band that you're like, bro, have you heard the 1975?
Are they?
I think so. I've seen them like memed as like that's a band you tell people like, oh, bro, I've been listening to a lot of.
I don't know any like 18-year-olds anymore, like I don't know. The people that I talk to are so, I mean, it's mostly like you, right? I have like, I don't have a wide range of people through quarantine anymore to try to, ping pong my taste off of now.
Max, speaking of your good taste, I think I just thought about it, and so I got more into quarantine.
Quarantine? You got more into quarantine?
Yeah, I got more into wine during quarantine as well. And it was actually Christmas. I think it was Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve where I first realized that I like maybe could actually enjoy wine. I think you, me, and Caravan went to the Moroccan place in West Seattle, and you were like, "Let's get a bottle of wine. It's cheap, whatever. Do you want a glass, Lindley?" I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm not a big wine guy." And then you're like, "Get him a glass anyways." So I had that glass of wine. I was like, "Damn, this is actually pretty good." And that from then on, I'm a big wine guy now, dude. I also, that was the first day. That was the day that I realized that when people offer me things, I should probably, if I actually want to try them, I should probably just oblige.
Ito's Tapas, best deal in the city. You could get. It was like half bottle off. I mean, I don't think they're
Sunday, Monday,
half off bottle of wine. And I mean, I guess small plates are never a good deal in terms of food per money. But yeah, I love that place. I miss living in West Seattle. I really liked West Seattle.
Yeah, we miss you guys. It's messed up. I moved out here and everybody just left.
I mean, the bridge being down is really tough.
Oh yeah,
it's very tough.
My second fun question was going to be I mean again pretty on the spot, but and depends what you want to share with the audience, but what do you miss the most and what do you miss the least about living with me, Brady, a couple other people?
Well, the thing I would miss the most, I'll go days now where I don't talk to anybody. But that might be the thing I miss the least too. That's probably the most. I miss just sitting in the living room and seeing people for a few minutes at a time, or around 7 or 8 if we're mostly done working. And I just don't really talk to anybody about work anymore now that I don't live with people outside of the house. It's much harder to do that outside the house, I would say. Get a little gossip in or whatnot. I really like living with fewer people, though. I would say that's the thing I miss. I miss the least. When we went from like nobody ever being in the house for the previous like year and a half to all 5 of us being in the house for like 2 months straight, I think it was time to leave.
Dude, hopefully our old property manager isn't listening to this, because five was not what we put on our lease. I think we had 2 people on our lease at one point, or for the majority of the time.
Yeah, we should delete all of this.
I was gonna say our old setup was pretty funny, because mine and Brady's room was just pretty small. Brady had a desk in there, and then I just had a desk in the living room next to the couch. So
which was also your bedroom previously, right?
Yeah. But when it was in my bedroom for a large portion of the day, it'd be pretty slow pace hanging out between me and Max. When Max would just stretch out on the couch, throw on a high Rotten Tomatoes scoring movie, and I'd just be fucking chugging along on my laptop and then get sucked in halfway through and watching the movie with him.
Let's go. But, I actually think Max was there with his headphones and watching a movie during the first podcast episode.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm the only 4-time podcaster now. I think I made a bagel in one of them, but the bagel, the toaster wasn't plugged in for about 2 minutes.
Yeah,
I think I did laundry in one, and then I think I watched Personal Shopper while you guys filmed one of the other podcasts. Which, I think this is my 4th time being on.
Wow.
I think you also dropped off. You also dropped off the Flashman book series during the Dan interview, because I interrupted my own question to go, I think Max Engelbrekt is dropping off something. Which, by the way, I still need to get you an equally deserving gift. So look out for that.
I'm waiting. Good luck.
Brady, you got any questions from the quiet corner?
No.
What did everyone eat today?
Oh yeah,
we had a viewer ask. I don't know who KDG is, but she asked what we were eating.
You actually don't know who KDG is?
Come on, Caravan.
I had some tropical mist gums.
Wow,
Just eating gums. I had a peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a packaged salad earlier.
That's gonna make her so angry, dude. All right. Go ahead, Max. What you eat today?
Let's go.
I had eggs and sausage and coffee.
That's hard.
Brady, what you got, dude?
Leftover Thai food.
Okay, Brady's audio is really not working. Okay, and thanks for coming on, Max. That's your wrap.
All right. See you next time.
Thanks.